toxic masculinity.
Oh, yes, that's right. We're going to talk about aliens. I've never talked about aliens on this show, and I've never given you my perspective. But I have titled this story, Cover-Up of UFOs Put Us at Risk, Warns Former Pentagon Official. As you can see, I've modified the title from the New York Post article very, very slightly. But I will say this about aliens. I don't actually believe in aliens. I've never believed in aliens. I've always thought it was silly. People are going to hate me for saying that. I know a lot of you guys are suddenly jumping on your keyboards going, what the hell's wrong with you? Of course there's aliens. I think it was Carl Sagan who said that with all the billions of galaxies, all the billions of planets around all the billions of galaxies throughout the universe, there's got to be life on some of them, right? I think he said something like that. I don't paraphrase. I don't remember exactly what he said. But I've always looked it up at that, and I've also heard scientists, physicists, and astrophysicists, and all these kinds of folks talk about the likelihood of our universe even existing at all. They're like, the likelihood of our universe existing is so small, you wouldn't even imagine that it's possible. And that's why they have this idea of the multiverse, right? That the multiple universes, infinite universes. The only way they can explain the existence of our universe is with the existence of an infinite number of universes. So there's this idea that within the scope of reality, I guess, there are an infinite number of universes, and anything you can imagine is true. And I've always thought about that, like, well, if there's an infinite number of universes and everything you can imagine is true, I can imagine God, right? Humans obviously have imagined God. And so at least in one of those universes, there is a God. And if there's a God, that God can transcend the various universes. And so that indicates, at least logically, that there must in fact be a God. So that's an interesting argument for the God of the multiverse. But anyway, so if every possibility is true, everything you can imagine in that, then that's a good argument for why our universe exists, because they're like, oh, just the chance of our universe existing, and there even being such a thing as matter is just beyond the scope of possibilities, right? And then within a universe like our own, the possibility of there being a planet that is that has such perfect conditions that life could emerge on that planet, that seems to be an infinitesimal possibility, like so small that it can't possibly be true, and yet it is true, right? And then for that planet to have developed life that is self-aware and intelligent and can perceive that universe that exists, that's also an infinitesimal possibility. So you have all these impossibilities, but they turn out to be true. And so because I'm always hearing that from these astrophysicists, I'm always thinking like, well, what are the chances that then happened twice, right? That there's two races of human, two beings that are self-aware and are intelligent out there, and one of them happened before us, and that they travel the various galaxies in these super fast spaceships and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of physicists aren't even sure that travel, close to light speed is even possible, much less beyond light speed. Like the concept of traveling beyond light speed, it's not even possible. You'd have to have like wormholes, stuff like that, and people aren't even sure that kind of stuff is possible. So now we come to this concept of UFOs, which everybody associates with extraterrestrial, alien life and, this hyper intelligence and all this kind of stuff. And so there's this new story out from the New York Post, and it's about an ex-Pentagon dude, official. I guess this guy was pretty high up. Let's see here. Former intelligence officer, Department of Defense. And this guy, I mean, look at these guys. These guys are exactly what you want when you want to talk about UFOs. You want these guys. I don't know who they are. I don't know what they sound like, but just the look of them is perfect. That's what you want. But there's a couple things I found really fascinating about this story, and it's always fun to talk about aliens, Okay, so let's what is a UFO, right? Unidentified flying object. I think that's what the military used to say when they were talking about sort of like enemy aircraft that they couldn't identify, right? And oftentimes different nations develop new technologies, new aircraft that other countries aren't aware of, and then you call that, what would you call that? Unidentified flying object, obviously. But then in the sort of like somehow within the culture, we started identifying these things with alien spacecraft. I think what this guy's saying is there are alien spacecraft, not just UFOs in the sense that like enemy aircraft that we can't identify, but I think what they're talking about here is UFOs, like alien stuff. So let's have a look at this. And even their typeface is like, I mean, it's almost like a Hollywood movie company made this, like hired these, they look like actors in a Hollywood movie to be like alien truthers or something like that. Anyway, UFOs exist, but the government doesn't want you to know it, according to the ex-Pentagon official who says he ran the program investigating unidentified aerial phenomenon, or UAP. Recalling the revelatory instant when he recognized that UFOs were bona fide, controversial whistleblower Lou Elizondo. I actually know a guy named Elizondo out here in Hollywood, but he is a Democrat, and he would kill me if he knew I was mentioning his name on the show, so I won't. Yeah, anyway. I used to work over at Warner Brothers, and I have a lot of friends in the film industry from that, film and TV and stuff like that, but yeah, I probably shouldn't mention them on the show. However, Elizondo has not been able to get the feds to act on what he describes as a serious national security risk due to a litany of roadblocks, including a cover-up of the existence of UFOs because of religious objections, concerns over tarnishing its own reputation, and fears of inciting public panic. So this is what really I thought was really fascinating. Religious objections. I'm like, that's weird. What religious objections? So he goes on to talk about these Tic Tac, the new Tic Tac footage, and how, oh, this is definitely like real, and there's all these like UFOs, and I'm trying to talk to Mattis, and nobody will take me seriously, and all this kind of stuff. And but then what he's talking about the religious stuff, I thought was fascinating. So let's scroll down here to the religious stuff, because that stuff is a bit weird. All right. The satanic reason unexplained phenomena were suppressed. So this is very interesting to me. Just if this is true, just the idea that there are people in government who don't want to talk about UFOs because they basically think it's like Satan. I mean, maybe it is. I don't know. I don't know really much about this stuff. All right, so this article, whoever they wrote this article writes, the presence of highly intelligent life, possibly more advanced than humans, would be huge news. Elizondo, who expresses a belief that the impending release of the upcoming UFO document, even though he is not privy to its contents, knows all about federal reticence on this matter. Elizondo quit his Pentagon job in frustration over authorities being unwilling to even entertain the possibility of UFOs. Referencing why his superiors refused to believe his boss at the time, General Mattis, Elizondo said, refused to brief his boss at the time. I don't read so good. General Mattis, Elizondo said, they were probably worried about tarnishing Mattis if it came out that he was briefed on UFOs. Well, that actually doesn't make any sense. I don't agree with that at all. And the reason I don't agree with that is because the definition of a UFO, as I mentioned before, is simply an unidentified flying object. So something flying that could be a new technology, something like that from another country. It doesn't necessarily mean alien spacecraft from another planet. So if General Mattis is not being briefed on UFOs, there's a problem there. He needs to be briefed on UFOs. He needs to know about unidentified flying objects that may be new technology from other countries, China, or something like that. So it wouldn't make any sense that he would not be briefed on UFOs. So this idea that, there's some, to me, this is very suspect. Because if this guy worked in this department with these people, he should know this. He should know that this is just sort of part of the military, right? Dealing with unidentified flying objects is part of working with the Air Force. But whatever, anyway. For senior Pentagon officials, Elizondo discovered acknowledging the very existence of UFOs was too much of a pill to swallow. And again, here, I think he's talking about alien spacecraft. I don't know why he's saying UFOs. He recalled one superior who clumsily changed the subject by asking Elizondo how the Miami Dolphin football team was doing. Some individuals have a problem with this topic because it interferes with their philosophical or maybe theological belief system. In fact, Elizondo claimed one senior told him to stop investigating UFOs and asked Elizondo if he'd read his Bible lately. Elizondo asked where his boss was going with the non sequitur before acknowledging familiarity with the good book. As per Elizondo, he was told, well, then you would know that these things are demonic and we should not be pursuing them. He wasn't kidding. That's exactly how he felt. Now, this, I also feel like this is a suspect thing to say because I've watched Hellboy. Hellboy, the movie and the comic book, actually makes more sense than this. Because if there's demonic phenomena that is being detected by the U.S. military, I would think that people in the U.S. military would want to know about that, right? I think that the curious minds would want to know, right? Curiosity would win people over, and they would want to investigate it. This idea of like, oh, let's not talk about that, let's not investigate it, let's not do anything, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. But anyway, that's just, I mean, I would definitely, if I saw some kind of like actual evidence of something from hell, whoo, I would investigate it. Although I will say that I have investigated certain things because of my writing, right? I'll be writing fiction, and so I'll be researching real-life phenomena about sort of like demonic possession or witchcraft and stuff like this, and it does kind of freak you out after a while. It's like, whoa, this stuff is dark, and it does seem like some of it is real, or at least some of these people who are dealing with it are genuinely like inclined to be in cahoots with the devil and stuff like this. That's weird, man. Some of that stuff is just weird. I'm sure some of you guys have read up on that more than I have, but some of the stuff I've read is freaky. And actually, I just mentioned the other day that I was looking into this idea that John Lennon had sold his soul to the devil. I find stuff like that fascinating. I mean, it's a little bit silly. I don't know how you would verify that, but yeah, there's this idea that John Lennon sold his soul to the devil. It's very weird. And there seems to be evidence for it, and people really believe it, and they look into this, and it seems to be at least possibly legit. I don't know how much I would believe it, but you know, that's the thing. Like, even if you're not a religious person, you can still acknowledge that there's people out there who are willing to engage in some kind of occult-like thing or some kind of demonic thing, practice or traditional, so exercise something in some way to try to achieve some kind of an aim. And whether it has an effect or not, I don't know. But there are people out there willing to try, at least I think, to sell their soul to the devil. And it's fascinating that there's somebody in government, at least according to this guy, who thinks that UFOs are demonic phenomena. Dr. Eric Davis, PhD, a former rocket scientist for the Air Force Research Laboratory and currently a scientist at government contractor, the Aerospace Corporation, confirmed they objected to UFOs as being satanic. Okay, so we've got confirmation from another guy that that's true. The line of thinking is not restricted to America. Nick Pope saw similar incidents of religion trumping science at the UK. Some objections came from people in government who think the phenomena is real, but demonic, Pope said. Their beliefs seems to be that studying UFOs would thus give energy to attention-seeking demons, which should be avoided. This view comes in part from the biblical description of Satan as the prince of the power of the air. But then even secular government officials who accept the reality of UFOs get concerned by exactly what kind of action should be taken and who should take it. They can't deal with it on a legislative basis or on a military operational basis. They can't deal with it on the basis of a presidential policy, says Davis. So they let a finite group of engineers and scientists and investigators work on it together, and their findings just collect cobwebs in the classified storage warehouse. Until Agent Mulder starts looking into it. and reveals the truth to the world. This is not my thing. I don't really study this kind of stuff, but it is. I don't know why the New York Post thought it was an important story to cover, but I just thought it was a bit of fun. I probably spent a little bit too much time on it today. I don't know why this is my lead story, but it's Friday. Come on, let's have a little fun, guys. But what was really fascinating to me is this claim that in the federal government, they don't study UFOs because they think it's demonic phenomena. I think that's really fascinating. I don't believe it 100% because, again, as I said, if I found out that there was demonic phenomena and I had the U.S. military resources, at my disposal, I would definitely start to investigate the demonic phenomena, because why wouldn't you? So I don't know. I don't know if I believe this guy. I think maybe he's a little bit of a kook. You guys might disagree. Anyway, let me know in the comment section at the end of the show. I can't look at them right now because my beautiful wife is not with me. She is on set doing a commercial. All right, so let's move on to the next story, shall we? All right, next story. Okay, this is interesting. Rioter gets a $12 million fine and 4 years in prison. Here's why this is interesting. I would expect that this would be a Trump supporter on January 6th, but it isn't. You know who it is? It's one of the actual bad guys. I don't know how this happened, but one of the actual, George Floyd protester Antifa types. I don't know if he's associated with any of those groups, but Black Lives Matter or anything like that. But he burned down a police station, and now he's actually going to prison, which I think is absolutely fantastic. $12 million fine might be a little steep. That seems like a little intense. 4 years in prison, he probably won't serve that, so I'm not that worried about that. It does seem like a little bit of an intense he's 23 years old. He looks like he's 12. He's 23. Toxic Masculinity. Weekdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.